Live from ABC 7, this is Eyewitness News in high definition.
This budget crisis could have a severe effect on social programs across the state. Eyewitness News reporter Leo Starwood has more on a Los Angeles shelter for single mothers where its director and residents are speaking out about the need for continued funding.
The Alexandria House in L.A. is a refuge for single mothers on the verge of being homeless. It temporarily shelters them, educates them, and helps them get jobs to restart their lives. Today, the women of Alexandria House and others rallied against the governor's call to cut social programs, cuts they say will cripple shelters throughout the Southland like Alexandria House.
We're just a small shelter, and that means the more than 200 calls that we get each month, we have to continue to turn down. So it means people are living on the streets, family are living on the streets. Conservative number is 91,000 homeless people. The fastest growing number is single women and their children, and there's 13,000 shelter beds in LA County. So any way you look at it, there's not enough.
These cuts, they're so unfair because, you know, sometimes people go through hard times.
Alexandria House officials say 85% of the single mothers who stay here were victims of domestic violence. Administrators warn less money means less room for mothers who need to flee life and death situations. Some argue, how dare the governor?
He said he was going to be the people's governor. We asked him to look at the promises he made to the children of California and live up to those promises.
I feel like it's a slap in the face that he will propose these cuts to Medicare, education, and also, you know, senior citizens and CalWorks families.
And we're ready to fight back. We will be in Sacramento. We will be in the streets. This is just the beginning of this fight.
In L.A., Leo Starwood, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Live from NBC4, this is the Channel 4 News at 6.
My new budget will reduce almost every state program by 10% next year, or as close as possible.
The governor announces drastic plans to solve the state's budget crisis. Good evening, I'm Anna Garcia.
And I'm Chuck Henry. Now, these proposed cuts, which are to cover a $14 billion shortfall here in the state, are bringing angry reaction for almost every corner of California. Here are just some of the cuts that the governor says he would like to impose. In education, give schools a 10% less money. Prisons release about 22,000 inmates. State parks close 48 of them and freeze funding for children of welfare recipients, for seniors, for the blind, and the disabled. Channel 4's Conan Nolan joins us now with more on these proposed cuts. Conan?
We're in North Hills, Chuck. There was a news conference here where the mayor of Los Angeles and the police chief were announcing a 27% reduction in gang homicides this past year, 35% reduction in some neighborhoods, a remarkable achievement, but as you can guess, this was overshadowed by this sobering news coming out of Sacramento, the possible release of thousands of prisoners from California penal institutions. All this the result of the budget crisis now being faced by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger.
My new budget will reduce almost every state program by 10% next year, or as close as possible.
The governor's proposed spending plan, an effort to eliminate a $14.5 billion deficit by slashing funds for nearly every statewide program, saving, for example, $4 billion by temporarily suspending the annual guaranteed increase in spending on K-12 public education.
I can see every single person hurt by these cuts, and I understand how difficult they will be for many, many people.
Such as those at Alexandria House, a transitional residence for homeless families, where this 25-year-old mother of 5 fears benefits for her children will now be cut.
It would hurt.
There are also proposed cuts to the cost of living increases for low-income, aged, blind, and disabled welfare recipients.
It's really enraging that the government, instead of supporting these efforts, are really making it more difficult.
The governor is seeking the early release of 22,000 inmates now in California prisons. Considered nonviolent offenders, only those with 20 months or less left in their sentence would be eligible. The savings, close to $1 billion over 2 years. Law enforcement is not happy.
So effectively, all the governor is doing is dumping the problems back into the streets.
One high-profile cutback, the closing of 48 of the state's 279 state parks, saving some $13 million. Democrats in the legislature say a cuts-only budget will not be tolerated, that tax hikes must be considered.
If we don't pay our bills, we could go into bankruptcy.
Now, in the governor's budget, there are no tax hikes, but he has some fees, for example, that he would like to impose, say, on insurance for homes in wildland areas to pay for firefighting. All that will be debated over the next several weeks as the California legislature in special session deals with California's fiscal crisis. I'm Conan Nolan, reporting live in North Hills, Channel 4 News.